Hello everybody, welcome to My Good Life. Finally, the sun is out on the west coast of Scotland. It's late spring. As you know, I love being out in nature, and one of the things about nature is I take away a lot of learnings from me working in nature and walking and just reflecting. And I wanted to share with you one of the learnings that I took away recently and how I did it and put a positive spin to translate into everyday tasks. So let's go and do this. Last winter and coming into early this year, we had huge storms. And these huge storms affected this old 200-year-old plus oak tree, and one of its major boughs fell. It fell and cascaded down, hitting two other trees. For a few months, right up to February, to be quite honest, I was very devastated. A, because this tree had had major damage on it, but B, it had just missed the greenhouse. It took us a month to kind of get our head around what's happened to this space. Thank God it's missed the greenhouse. What are we going to do? So that change happened in nature, and we had no control over it, but we had to do something about it. So it took us another month to start clearing all this up. And we thought, let's clear it, and hopefully as we clear it, we'll get some clarity. That was the second part of the change, how we slowly adjusted to the devastation of this oak tree, to this little part of our land, and thinking, what are we going to do? And what are we going to do? I'm going to tell you that. So all this change happened in our little bit here. And I started looking at what it was. As we were clearing the large pieces of log, there was this natural log. Can you see that natural log that this is one of the boughs of the oak. It just fell there. And I thought, hang on, that's like a little curve. Why don't we leave it there? And this big pile of mess that you see right now, if you look at that big pile of mess there, I thought, okay, you know what? I'm going to make a rockery here. Why not just do something? It's devastated this land. Let's just do something here, make it look pretty. Let's notice it. Let's acknowledge what's happened here. That mindset that I had of change and adapt happened because I was here in nature, working, thinking it through. And it made me reflect about how I can take this learning into every day. I do this every day. We all do it every day. We've got multiple roles as mothers, fathers, people, grandparents, responsibilities. And we often switch hats at a flick. 1 minute we're rushing out of the house, 1 minute we're at work, in a professional environment maybe, or in a work environment. 1 minute we're a mother or father or grandfather. And all those switches are changing and adapting to the situation, very much like we just did in nature. But often what we do when we look at that is not so positive. And before I talk about that, I'm going to tell you something positive that I want to do here. Build the rockery. But before I do that, I want to chainsaw a bit of the branches and think of making something with parts of this oak tree, and I'll share that with you. So let me just think about this whilst I work at it. going to take this log in a bit over there and over by the woodshed and chop it up, and I'll talk about that and what we're doing at that stage. But before we go, I want to show you this little bit of rockery, which looks pretty right now, but it's taken about 7 years to do this bit of rockery and that little bit of section over there. It came about because this whole area was really a dump site, and we started digging it and found all rocks and boulders, not like this, by the way, just strewn over the place. And one of the things we found was people had dumped this stone fireplace, which is broken up. I thought, rather than create, why not make something of this? Why not use what's here and create something positive for us? So I started looking at all the rocks and the boulders and the fireplaces that had been dumped, and thought, well, I'm going to make a lovely rockery and showcase it. Showcase the history of maybe this land, I don't know, maybe this fireplace belongs here, maybe there was a house here, but showcase it and work with it. And that's what it's all about. How do you change and adapt and put a positive spin on things around you? I'll continue this conversation when I go down to wood store. Isn't it beautiful? This is just, look at the colour. Rhododendrons only really last for the month of May, depending on where you are in Scotland. And it's just, we're towards the tail end actually of some of the plants here, but look at the glorious colour. Just can't deny that. And when the sun's shining like this, it's even better. Right, as I was saying earlier on, part of change and adaptability is how you look at things. How do you put a positive stance or reflect on things that change consistently? And how can you take learnings away from nature? I noticed that when things in nature happen, they just happen and they devastate, and then you have to work around it. And you work around it, and I often found that when I worked around it, I always tried to find something positive, because otherwise it would be too painful to constantly look at damaged trees and damaged areas. And I thought, that's kind of what I do in my everyday life. When things happen, I get up in the morning, I go to work, or I deal with things sometimes with the kids or the grandkids or with the family or with various parts of my life. But I'm constantly dealing with it. And rather than looking at dealing with multiple things in a day in a negative way, I look at it as it's a skill I have. I can change and adapt. And because I can change and adapt quickly, I don't look at changing and adapting as a stressful act to do. One of the learnings that I take away from nature is how easy it is for me to adjust when I work with nature. Why is it that I can't adjust as quickly when it comes to changing and adapting in everyday tasks, when I'm at home, when I've got multiple hats as a mother or a professional or as a grandmother or as a partner? And watching myself adapt so quickly in nature to the surroundings, I took away learning, and I thought, I need to translate this into my everyday tasks. I need to reflect on why it is that I can't change and adapt as quickly in my personal life to changing situations as I can when I'm in nature. And those are the learnings that made me think a lot about my space around me, and I wanted to share that with you. A lot of this may seem like common sense. When I share with you things like how to do certain acts and to reflect on it in a positive way, may seem, well, I do that. It may seem to you like as if, well, I do that. Why is she telling me that? It doesn't just happen. This is a skill. You constantly have to be telling yourself to look at things in a positive way. Our natural instinct often is to be very reactive to situations, especially if situations change quickly. And I'm talking about, let's say we have multiple hats as in our role. When we have to change often and quickly, we will get stressed. So to prevent that, if you reflect at it, in your life at points where you're calm and see how your behavior is perceived, it allows you to then put a seed in your head that says, next time some change happens, I need to just think about it. Just like I did when I changed and adapted with nature. I took some time, I took some space to think things through. I need to translate that in my everyday life as well. I need to take time, think it through before I react. So, if I've left you with any learnings here, I hope that it is to reflect and to say, can we learn from our changing environments? Can we translate that into our everyday tasks? Till next time, everybody.